Gracias por escuchar otro episodio más de Empodérate de Chicanos por la Causa. ¡Empezamos! Muy buenas tardes, ¿qué tal? Tenemos un episodio muy especial. We have a very special episode el día de hoy. Fatima, how was your day?
It was really good. We just came back from lunch, so I'm well fed. I'm ready to get the show started. We have a very good guest today, La Morena. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you.
Lucinda La Morena Hinojos.
Yes.
Visual artist and muralist. It's such a pleasure having a superstar here with us today.
Hey, I'm super excited to be here and just chat with y'all. You know, I have stories to tell, so I'm excited. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. So tell us first, share about your roots. Where did you grow up?
So I was born in Phoenix, raised in Glendale. I am Mexican-American, Apache, Yaqui, and Pima, which is Autumn, descended from my mother's side. But I grew up not culturally connected and not in those communities, so I identify as Chicana.
That's Chicana.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. And so Glendale has always been your home there here in the Valley?
Well, I was raised in Glendale, and currently I live in the Avondale, the West Side area. But a lot of my work is based in Phoenix and then all over the state and international and globally. You know.
Right? Yeah, it's amazing. But isn't it strange how it all comes together or wonderful, right? You used to work just like a couple of blocks from where our studio is right now.
Yeah.
So you used to investigate fraud. I'm like, how does an artist ever to do that? I think it takes a lot of talent to be able to handle totally
to switch the hats. I wore many hats when I first started out and in my art career. And driving up here, I was noticing a few things. The barrio that we're in, which is Golden Gate.
Right.
And then I worked at Bank of America for 12 years.
Wow.
And so to be here, sitting here and sharing that story, it's like, man, I was there for 12 years. But, working there had its benefits because it actually structured me to work on my business and the organization that I have and learning how to use my resources of what I have right in front of me to run a business and do my art career. But so, yeah, it was pretty cool. And then when I took the jump, it was something because people have asked me, were you scared? And honestly, I didn't have time to be scared. I was really busy and I was determined to do my art and something that I love to do. Yeah.
How did that started? When the love for art manifested itself, what was that turning point for you?
I think my early years of art was 2011, 2012. I was really inspired by graffiti art and the underground art scene. From there, I started to throw some art shows. And then 2015, there was a group of artists who came to Phoenix and they were painting a mural on 2nd Street in Washington. Now, this is a significant story because I'll tell you, there was a full circle moment that happened when I did the Super Bowl. But in 2015, they were painting a mural that was regarding immigration. And in the middle of that project, it did get shut down or it stopped because of, they said, insurance policy. But putting a couple of things together, we knew it was regarding politics. And so I've never seen art do that before. And I know I've shared this story before in other interviews, but this story is important because of the full circle moment that I had during Super Bowl. And this moment actually inspired me culturally, awakened me spiritually, politically, because the impact that mural had was after they canceled us, the artists were about to go back home, but I was able to get them another wall in the Grand Avenue Art District. And when we did that and we painted that second wall, community came out, journalists came out, other artists came out, and we just had a really good time. But I was like, wow, I'd never seen that happen. And not only that, it changed my perspective. It taught me things about the issue. Born and raised in Arizona, I wasn't paying attention to politics. And then, we had SB 1070 happen.
Right.
And I remember that was the first time ever that I was like, oh my God, paid attention to an issue. And not only that was the first time I was ever scared to be brown, but I was at home raising my kids, working 2 jobs. I wasn't tuned in. And when that mural happened, it kind of like put everything in perspective. And I was like, man, if that mural did that for me, imagine the many more could do it for. And that's why I started painting murals, because of the impact.
What was that mural like?
So it was the first wall on 2nd Street in Washington was 2 hummingbirds. It was blue. They're unfinished. And then the one in Grand Avenue Art District was migrant it was a mother who had lost her son. He had crossed in the Sonoran Desert and they couldn't find him. And so she had a picture of him. And this project was with Gulibri Human Rights Organizations. And that organization is founded by Robin Renicki, who actually organized this, or founder of it. And then they would find the bodies that have, passed in the desert, and then they would give the remains back to the families. And so there was a documentary that came out, a movie came out called Who is Diane Christel? The film director was Mark Silver. And then the leftover money from that project, they funded this mural project. So it was a really good start for me, because it just opened just opened me up completely.
It's still there. Can we see it?
The one in Grand Avenue is still there, but the one on 2nd Street, it's no longer there because not knowing this, but the NFL had picked that wall to be the Super Bowl mural.
Wow.
And they had no idea.
Several years later.
Yeah. And so I don't know when you want me to share that story, but that's a really cool story. I was like, let's go to other questions.
Why don't we dive into that? How would that connection to the Super Bowl started? Yes, you heard it right. She had a contract, an NDA, so she knew for months with NFL, and then also with Wilson. So we're going to show a picture later of the football that we have here and her beautiful art. But first of all, tell us how that whole thing started with the Super Bowl, the first Chicana and Native American. Oh my God.
I'm just kidding. Honestly, I thought the email was spam. I didn't believe it. But once I responded and I had that Zoom meeting, I was like, oh, it's going down. But I wasn't like notified right away that I got it. What the process was, they reached out. They had I spoke to Stephanie from the arts project team for the NFL, and she had suggested, or she had let me know that I was one of several artists, and they would like for me to send a proposal. And I was like, okay, we only had like a day and a half to do it. And so I sent my proposal in, put my prayers out, and then they said they wanted to meet with me. And I got that Zoom call, and they said they had a address that I was selected for to be the Super Bowl marquee artist. And I just started crying. I started crying because I just looked like, there was like a flash that I saw everything that I went through and been through and all the hard work take place. And then my kids were standing next to me, and to celebrate that with my kids, was such a very heartwarming moment. And my kids are very big football fans.
So how did the NFL learn about your art to even reach out to you in the first place to send the proposal?
I think it was Ashley was part of the team, the arts project team. She referred me. It was a friend of hers, and that referred her to Ashley. And I really think it was my friend, Quinaja. She's actually Lone Wolf. She's actually Indigenous. Mm-hmm. She's African-American, and then Lakota from her mother's side. And I don't want to mess up her name, but her mother was a very big, influential person in Arizona. And so, which is crazy because, we've had, Queen has actually been a very inspirational person to me. Mm-hmm. And I've learned from her just from over the years. And so when I found that out, I was really emotional, and that meant a lot to me, so I was really proud. And so, yeah.
That's amazing.
When you said you learned from her, what do you feel like was what stood out to you the most?
She advocates for Indigenous people. She's very strong, resilient, and powerful woman, and very that sisterhood. She likes to like she has your back, and she's always speaking up and addressing certain issues for Native people. So, yeah.
Do you think about her when you do other murals like that are like advocating for social issues?
Yeah. Well, she's actually, during the Super Bowl, I had actually reached out for some mentorship because it was really a big responsibility that I did not expect or even prepare for.
You only had a day and a half
for the proposal.
For the proposal,
yeah. But for the whole experience, I just didn't know what I was getting into. And so it just happened so fast. And at the time I had a manager, but both of us, we weren't prepared. It wasn't until I was walking down the street with a friend, went to go get coffee, and he heard me on the phone. He's like, "You're doing what? What are you doing?" And I told him, he's like, "Yo, let's go inside and sit down right now." He goes, "Are you ready?" And I was like, "Ready for what?" I was like, "What do you mean?" And then that's when I was like, I got lightheaded. I was in the coffee shop. I was like, "Oh my God." I was like, "I'm sweating." And so that's when I had to sit down with my manager, and we're just like, "Yo, this is going to be big." And he's like, "I know." I was like, "Well, what did you tell me?" He's like, "I've been trying to tell you." And I was like, "Oh my God." And so I did the best I could, and I do feel that I did the best I could. And when they announced it on January 10th, 2023, was it? Yeah. I woke up and they announced it and my phone was just going off. And I was like, "Oh my God, it's happening." And before this, I had to keep it a secret for about, 6 to 8 months, I think it was.
Oh my goodness.
And the plan was to only do a digital image for the ticket. We went on that design, man. We went back 22 times. It was a very intense project. I learned so much from it. But it was also very hard because you're not able to reach out to your mentors, and talk or get advice or am I doing this right? And not only that, I was trying to be culturally sensitive.
Yes.
It
showed.
For Native people and for Mexicans and Chicanos. And I was trying to be inclusive and make it represent all of us, right? But so it was really hard. And so we went back 22 times. It went from pencil to digital. And the crazy part is we had 8 days to print. And they had told me, "Lucinda, so the director has, we want to have a Zoom. We have to talk about the project." And I was like, "Oh my God, am I getting fired?" Because I'm not a digital artist. My element is painting and murals.
Right.
And so I was struggling. I was praying. But the colors and everything was coming together, so it was getting them really excited. And they had told me, they're like, "We want to let you know you are in the right direction." And she said, "When you sent us those digital images, everyone from the office got up to run to the desk to see your design. And everybody was getting so excited." And I was like, "Good, because of the colors."
Right? That she is also wearing today. I love it.
And so when we had that Zoom meeting, they said, "We have a change in project." I was like, "Oh my God, what?" and Stephanie said, the director loves what you're doing in your digital design, but he wants us to put you in your element and have you paint it." And I said, "What? Come again?" Whoa! Because when I paint, they know this. They know that when I paint something, I usually take about a month or so. We had 8 days to print. 8 days.
Wow.
And so they wanted me to do this painting in 8 days. And I was like, and you could see that I almost had a panic attack and my face got all pale. But Stephanie from the NFL, she's like, "But wait. I have something to share with you." And I said, "Okay." She said, "I'm going to tell you, I panicked yesterday. I had an anxiety attack yesterday when they told me they changed the project." She goes, "I ran outside in New York to get some air." And she said, when I'm sitting there on the bus, she's like, she's like, "Did we make the right decision?" And she's questioning everything. And she's like, "Oh my God, can we do it?" When she's sitting there, all of a sudden she heard a flutter by her. And when she looked, it was a hummingbird. And she goes, and she said, when she saw that hummingbird, she knew that everything was going to be okay. So she shared that story with me. And when she shared that with me, I felt everything, and I knew everything was going to be okay. And I told her, that is validation that my ancestors are talking to you. Because at the beginning, they weren't so sure about having the hummingbird in the design. And I had to explain to them why it's important for me to have this element in the piece. And they had just received their validation. And throughout this whole experience, there were so many moments like that, synchronicities, full circle moments that continued to happen through this project. So I knew that there was a bigger purpose in itself on why it was happening, and it was designed to happen. And so that gave me reassurance, like, I can do this, and that this is here and that everything was going to be okay. And another crazy story about the hummingbird is, like, after I started painting, I was working on, I didn't even actually paint this painting in my studio. I didn't have a studio at the time, or at my house. I had to do it at an Airbnb because secret. It was a secret. And so none of my kids could see it, And so when I had to work on that painting, it was really tough because it's like you're in this box and you're dealing with all your emotions by yourself. So it got really hard, but also exciting at the same time. But you're pushing your limits. And so I learned a lot as an artist, as a painter. I learned a lot about myself. And it was crazy because I feel like sometimes this should be a movie, what happened. And during the middle of the painting, I did have a videographer that was filming. And so there was a moment, and I don't think Stephanie knows this, but I'm going to say it. I was struggling with the painting, and the painting started peeling. And I was like, what is happening? Man. And I was trying to, I peeled it off, and I was like, there's like this thing. And I was like, and I sanded it. I tried everything, and I was working on it for 3 days. And then I was like, I don't know, but you know what? I got to take this painting outside. I was like, I'm going to take it outside. And I picked up some spray cans, and I told the videographer, Maddie, and I was like, look, let's just go outside. Let's just go outside. He's like, okay. So he went outside, and I held the cans, and I just looked up, and I said, I'm gonna need help, ancestors. I was like, loved ones. I was like, I'm gonna pray right now. I was like, just give me a sign. Give me a sign if this is what I should do. And so I kid you not, another hummingbird comes in, and we're like, what? And it comes in, it's all dancing like this. And the videographer had the camera. He's like, no way. And he films the hummingbird. I said, that's it. I'm doing it. So I went with a spray can, and it was fixed like that. And I was like, wow. Oh my God. And he goes, and the videographer, Matt, was like, yo, he's like, you just fixed that in 3 seconds, and you're working on that for 3 days. I go, shut up, Maddie. Shut up.
So for those that may not know, tell us about the history and the symbolism in our cultures, what the hummingbird means, colibrillo chuparrosa for some.
Yeah. So to me, in both like my Mexican and Mexican-American culture and my native, I learned from my Apache side that they are light workers, messengers. And then from the Aztec Mexica side is like we've known them. There's, a deity called the Huitzilopochtli. And when the warriors would fall, they would reincarnate to a hummingbird. Mm-hmm. And so I believe that when you've lost a loved one, the hummingbird would come back as, their loved one would come back as a hummingbird. And so if you ever notice a hummingbird trying to get your attention or they're really close to you, just know that's a loved one saying hello. And so I've always loved, and I don't care how many times I see the hummingbird, I get so excited. And I'm like, I'm such a hummingbird whisperer. I'm like, oh yeah.
It's true. It's true. I was telling the story about
you
my
even have it on the football.
Yeah,
the NFL football.
You do. How did that come along too? With the partnership with Wilson too.
So there was a really cool story with them as well. They had reached out, and it was funny because when they reached out, I had to let the NFL know, and they freaked out because they thought, oh my God, like how did they thought my information got leaked out, and it was still had not been announced yet. So, but when they had jumped on Zoom, I'd let the NFL know that no, we didn't know, and that we just love her work, and we just reached out. And so it was really cool. It worked out because, you know, I was able to take some of the elements from the painting and put them into football. And so it really went, you know, well with each other. And so we did 50 of the yellow laces, and that was at the NFL Experience. And it was really cool because those sold out really quick. And then the pink laces were done online, and those sold out pretty well, or sold out pretty quick too. So
do you know how many about how many there was of the pink lace?
I think 50 or maybe 100. I don't know.
I feel like 50 to 100.
Limited edition for sure.
Yeah, they're limited edition. And so, yeah.
And it's so beautiful.
Yeah, it was really...
So these are very rare, and we have one right in front of us.
Yes.
That's crazy.
And she's going to sign it pretty soon.
Yeah. So
For real.
Yeah.
I'm just scared to grab it.
So what you think people should know about art? It has certainly changed your life and your perspective, but there is also negative connotations and barriers that you face because you've chosen this path, or when you doubted yourself that this should be the path, and there was that turning point from living a safe job into venture on your own with the passion that art brings in you and your family.
Yeah. There was many obstacles and hardships that I went through, but I've always been a person of determination and a survivor, and someone to just keep going no matter how hard it is. You just keep going. And a lot of it has to also do with like my faith, and now my culture. My art has actually reconnected me to my culture. So I wasn't raised in, you know, culturally on my native side. You know, I remember when I was little, I remember things, but it wasn't like taught to me. And so it wasn't until I started painting, my grandmother started to recognize things that I was doing. And so it opened up her stories, and she started sharing with me. And I was like, what? I'm what? Because as a kid, I was made fun of for being Native. And I was like, I'm not Native. And then growing up, I would identify, or in my 20s, I would identify as Mexicans. And then I was told, you're not Mexican. And I'm like, what the heck am I? So I had this like identity crisis growing up, and I didn't know who I was and where I came from. But when I started painting, it guided me into these communities that have been accepted, and I've been learning so much. And, you know, and it's just been a beautiful thing, because it's like when you reconnect, it's like you found this lost family member that's been missing for such a long time. And so it's beautiful. It's very emotional, and it's sensitive, but it's also like very like healing, you know, very healing for me. And so I've now have elders that are mentors, and I participate in as much as I can. And for me, it's so important that if you're reconnecting, my advice would be, because there's a lot of me's, right? There's a lot of people who are mixed, and a lot of people that have not grown in their culture. And, you know, there's cultural assimilation that happened to our people. And so there's that disconnect. And so my advice for people who are connecting right now is just like, ask questions to your family members, you know, and then and then just learn how to just learn, and then listen, and then take that, you know, and then also participate if you can, any little or big way that you can. And that's how I've gotten to reconnect to my Apache roots, to my Yaqui roots, to my Pima. I spent a lot of time in Salt River and the land. The land will teach you so much. And I'm so grateful for my friend that has been helping me on that journey, and his family that have been teaching me so much. And so art has not only reconnected me to my own roots, but to other Indigenous communities. And it's been such a beautiful thing that's happened. In these murals that I've been painting have been telling stories and advocating for Native people. And it's I learned something when I was painting the MMIW mural, which is one of my famous murals. There was something that I started to notice that was happening. I like to work very connected to my ancestors, my loved ones who've passed and into prayer. And so when I'm feeling lost or confused or I'm not unsure about something, I pray. I ask them for help. I ask them, for guidance. And so when I painted a mural, that MMIW mural, it wasn't the original mock-up that I designed. There was one night that I couldn't sleep, and it was 4:00 in the morning. I was like, something's wrong. And I could feel like, I don't know, there's something, I don't know what it is. So I went on my Instagram to get some inspiration. And then that's when I saw the image of Jordan Marie, who is an Indigenous cross-country runner, and she had the red hat in her face.
Wow.
So when I painted that, or when I saw that, I saw the image in my head, and I was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't sleep. So, because I was so excited.
Mm-hmm.
But when I saw that image, I took my friend Monique's niece to the studio, and we draped in her grandmother's ceremony, or a blanket that she got in ceremony. And I put the red hand on her face, put the bandana because she's also Chicana and Dene.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I saw her in the studio, I got goosebumps because I was like, oh, something's about to happen, but I don't know what. So I painted that mural. I did it in 5 days. I finished it on May 3rd. The MMIW Awareness Women's Conference was May 4th, and the MMIW Awareness Day was May 5th at the state capitol, and I had no idea.
Wow.
So I had no idea, and I freaked out. I was like, what? So I was able to go to state capitol and was like, I saw everyone wearing the ribbon skirts and the red shirts, and I was like, oh, and it was like synchronicities.
Right.
So it was like designed to happen. And when I posted it, that mural went viral. It reached over 50,000 people in a few days, became globally known within a couple weeks, and still continues to advocate on its own to this day. And so this gift, it's like, I don't see myself as anyone special. I just tapped in and I know how to work with this, the talent, and work with my loved ones who have passed. And then, prayers and guidance, and taking that and accepting this role, stepping up to this role,
mm-hmm.
and, being on this path and this journey and doing this work, right? Because all these other communities I've been going into, I've been learning not only about myself, but learning about their culture, their creation stories, their protocols, and what's going on in their communities. And so, like, for example, I was in Montana painting in Blackfeet territory. I painted my friend who's Blackfoot on the Canadian side.
Mm-hmm.
And when I painted that mural, there was Blackfeet elder who walked out, and he said, this mural gives me hope.
Oh.
And I just started crying.
Wow.
And that, hope is an antidote to depression, to mental illness, into the spirit, right? And so I was like, wow, and so this is one of the main reasons is why I paint these murals.
It's a legacy. You're leaving that behind, and it's taking you, to travel around the country internationally.
Mm-hmm.
So you're a global superstar, and I'm sure that you're recognized at home as well. That's one. We were talking about that earlier.
My babies, my kids.
So do they know this yet? Has it sink in how famous you are and worldly recognized?
You know what? My kids have been around some pretty cool people all their life, like since I started art, and I'm like, do my kids know? Like just know?
Just Google my name.
Yeah, Google your mom's name and tell your friends. Can your mom do this? Is your mom on here? No, I'm just kidding. But I think it was when they were sitting inside the Super Bowl, mm-hmm. When they're sitting at the game, when they kind of realized, okay. Oh no, you know what? When we went to the NFL honors, and I took my son Nathaniel, and he met his favorite player, CeeDee Lamb. And my son was literally shaking. Wow. And we were getting a drink, and my son looks up, and he's like, Mom, Mom. And he was shaking. I go, what? And I don't really know the players. And so my son was my guide. He was shaking it up with them all night. They're showing his bling. I was like, dang. That was pretty cool. But he met CeeDee Lamb, and we chatted with CeeDee Lamb, and he showed CeeDee my ticket, the ticket I designed, and he's like, you did that. He's like, you did that. And he gave me a hug, and he's like, yo, he hugged my mom. It was so cool. You're right. So it was awesome. It was like the best feeling in the world that you can do that for your kids, right? Because growing up, I was a single mom, and they played Pop Warner, but I could not afford their fees. And so I really struggled. And so that's kind of the reason why I started art, because I needed a side hustle to make extra income, not knowing that I was going to be hired by the NFL years later.
Wow.
It's
amazing.
I guess like your journey is really inspiring for like aspiring artists. And it's interesting how it started off as a side hustle to now like your full-time job. Yeah. I guess like what would be your tips for aspiring artists that want to, get to the level that you are?
I would say if you're just starting out, have it as your passion, a hobby, and like do it for fun. Mm-hmm. And then because if you think about it, just doing it for fun, it takes all the stress off of you, and you're enjoying what you're doing. And then it's going to build as the years go, as the year or months go, then you'll be able to start, thinking more outside the box as a business. Because honestly, I was just been having fun, doing something that I love. And it really didn't get serious for me until I did the Super Bowl. Then I was like, dang, I gotta get my LLC. I gotta go do taxes like this, like what?
And then you're gonna promote your art.
You gotta do your bookkeeping and accounting. I'm like, oh my God, you gotta run your own store. Oh my God, I just want to do art. So it gets really hard. So I think in the beginning, just have fun. Yeah. Have fun. Because then you get to get your style, and you just like, there's no like, pressure. There's no pressure. And that's what I would say for my advice on early aspiring artists who are just starting out. Yeah.
And then once they get to that level where they're starting to get these like gigs, I guess, how do you deal with that pressure? Especially you said you had a day and a half to do a proposal for a big company like the NFL. How was that? Like, how did you deal with that?
It was like, dang, it was stressful. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It can get stressful. But I like to say that I do have structure. I like to be organized. Like I have a morning routine that I do, and I'm very disciplined. And there's some times where I'm not disciplined. But for me, it's like, there's things that I do in my life to not get a burnout and to stay up to speed with everything, from like, exercising, what I eat, taking time, like not working Saturdays and Sundays, to be with my family so I can get that recharge, being out on the land, a recharge, so that I can come back and be 100% and do the work that I'm doing. So taking care of your spirit and taking care of your physical body so that you can stay up with the busyness, because we can get caught up in this fast-paced life. And if you don't slow down, you will get a burnout. Mm-hmm. And when you get a burnout, that could really cause like illnesses that have been like asleep. How do you call it? Like have been like for example, that haven't been, I would say they're asleep, and then they come out because you're stressed. I've learned that stress can cause 90% of our illnesses. Mm-hmm. And so example is last year I was, imagine after Super Bowl, I was so tired. Mm-hmm. And not only that, there was some things that I was going through, like some obstacles. And then I developed out of nowhere, I was driving last year, it was 118 in my car. And I was driving, and all of a sudden I felt something like, I was like, what is that? I couldn't breathe. I felt like I couldn't breathe. And then it turned into, I think it was a panic attack. And then it turned into anxiety. And I didn't know, I've never had that. I didn't know what it was. And so I went to my sister's house, and I was like, something's wrong with me. I was like, I can't breathe. And like, oh shoot. And my sister knew exactly what it is. She's like, do this, do that. And I was like, okay. It went away, but then it came back. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh no. So I was doing that for a while. But then I had to learn from my awesome friend. He was like, you need to say you're sorry to your physical body because you have been neglecting it. And I was like, oh shit. Was I allowed to say that?
Yeah, we're good. So we're glad that you were able to manage that and understand and listen to your body, because then a few months later, which is almost a year ago now, you were able to get a mural painted our senior center in West Phoenix at Chicanos por la Casa Senior Center in West Phoenix. Your mural has been a source of joy and inspiration to our residents. How is that process throughout? I heard that they had some input, and that there is, we're looking at it, the beautiful colors that you are portraying right now, that hot pink and orange and the flowers. I love it.
And yellow.
So it's always important to listen to your elders. So I was designing this elder woman with this shawl, and it was kind of gray, and I was like, ta-da! And then they went around. They're like, we don't want to see ourselves on the wall. I'm like, oh my God. And so they wanted bright colors. They wanted something lively. And so this was the design that I came up with, and they loved it. And so when I was working on it, I got to chat a little bit with some of the elders there and got to learn about them. They got me to speak my Spanish and stuff. And I was like, I was all nervous and sweating and shit. I was like, oh my God. But it was so cool, and it meant a lot to me that it lifted their spirits, because they would tell me, and I was like, really? I was like, oh man, that means a lot to me, that I could do that for them.
Yes, so. We love them. They're not shy from expressing their opinions.
No.
Letting you know how they really feel. And I love it because they do share that joy with others when something is where it needs to be and how it needs to be. They really let you know that, and it's amazing. They're a very active group at that community center.
It was a lot of fun.
So thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you.
So what's next for you, La Morena?
I have a really cool project that's coming up, which is dear to my heart, and I almost started crying because some of my inspirations, like people that I've looked up to, there's a couple. One is Dolores Huerta, who I got to meet not too long ago, and I started crying. And then Cesar Chavez, and also an elder named Winsor Nosey from the Apache Stronghold family out there in San Carlos. But so the Cesar Chavez Foundation reached out, the president of the new president of Cesar Chavez Foundation, they reached out that they have a new property out in Glendale that they want a mural for. And so, I got that Zoom call. I had to write a proposal, and then they let me know that I got it. And I started crying. Because and it means so much to me because, I didn't start identifying as Chicano until I got older. And I learned so much about the Chicano movement, what it means to be Chicano. And that's where I felt most comfortable in, that people grew up like me. Like, they were taking peanut butter and jelly and burritos to school. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, oh, shit.
And it's normal. That's the way, that's why we know.
You know what I mean? And so, then I learned about the United Farm Workers and all that. And I was really inspired by Cesar Chavez and the movement, and then I learned about Dolores Huerta, and they just really, still to this day, I'll think like when something happens, I'm like, oh, what did Dolores do? Like things like that. And so I'm really excited. And the other day I got a box in the mail from them, like to help me start working on the mock-up. And I was like, oh my God, like it was a book, it was stickers, it was photos. I get to look at photos. And I'm like, this is so cool. Like, man, to paint someone like Cesar Chavez just like, it was a dream. This is a dream project for me. So I'm really excited. So yeah.
That's so beautiful. We can't wait to see it. So before we go, I wanted you to come back and take us to the full circle story that you were talking about earlier. That mural that it was not able to be completed with the hummingbirds at that time a few years ago. And then you came back with that amazing mural now supported by a bigger organization in that case, but the platform that you had to really show what our culture is all about. Yeah,
so this is a really interesting story. That wall is the same wall that changed my life forever, which I shared earlier. When Stephanie had told me, she's like, we're looking at several walls. And then they finally came to a decision. And I was like, oh, cool, which one? And because she was like, we found one. I was like, oh, really? Which one? And she's like, it's on 2nd Street in Washington. I was like, what? I was like, no way.
You got the insurance for it?
Yeah. Waited.
That's what they told us. That's what you were told before.
And so I couldn't believe, I told her, I said, Stephanie, I was like, that's the mural that changed my life forever. She's like, oh, no way. She was like, no way. And I go, that is crazy. And so crazy thing is like, even the mural, there was a mural before with those 2 hummingbirds in 2015 that also the project fell through as well. And so it was like 2 times projects fell through on that same wall. The 3rd time, it almost didn't get completed either because there was insurance things. There's things that were obstacles that were coming up that were putting some barriers up. But, you know, what I did, and before I paint any mural, I do have like an elder or medicine man or woman and come out and we circle up and I have them do like a blessing for us to help with the process of the mural because there's just certain things that happen that I don't know why I started doing this, but I've been doing it every single mural that I've done. And so when we started, and first of all, I just wanted to give a shout out to the team because there was like, it was awesome because I was able to pick other 8 Indigenous artists, mostly women, which has never been done before in NFL history. And it was pretty chingona of us to do that, right?
Yeah.
And so, man, we worked so hard. But it was 22 days on that mural. But when we started sketching out the design on the wall, we used 2 big projectors from across a couple buildings down to zoom it up, and that's how we did it. When we're done sketching it, we went across the street and we're looking up, and we saw one of my friends named Randy. He was just like, yo, he goes, look. He goes, the hummingbirds are back up there. And I was like, wait, what? I didn't even realize what just happened or what I did. But I did, we did, if you look at the mural, there's 2 hummingbirds back up there, but this time they're completed. And so full circle, we've got the hummingbirds back up there and it's been completed. So it was a beautiful project. Not gonna lie, it was very hard. It was intense. 22 days, the wall is 9,500 square feet. It was cold, it was windy. But after it was, the picture was dropped, we got so much love and support. So yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's a Phoenix pride for sure. Yeah. So thank you for sharing your art with the rest of the world, and then also coming back and really giving that the full circle that it needed to. And it's just beautiful. And then the hummingbirds that surround you and that will continue to surround you forever, sending you those beautiful messages. Thank you for being a Latina, for being Native American, for being Chicana, wherever you go, and make sure that our culture is well represented.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, it's a pleasure having you today. Thank you for taking the time. I know it was a long time coming with all the busy schedule that you have now, traveling to Bluff, Utah, and New York, and everywhere else in between, and then being a mom, and now being a nana.
I was like, Nana Morena? I don't know.
Mama Morena. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for sharing the space, the time with us. And we'll hope to see you next time with your new projects and your store.
Yeah.
That's all we have for today.
Okay, thank you.
We'll see you next time. En Chicanos por la Causa, Empoderate.